Okay, close your eyes and picture Paris. What's the first thing that comes to mind? For pretty much everyone, it's the city of lights, right? You're thinking romance, you're thinking art, and those incredible sweeping boulevards. It's the Paris of dreams, the one you see on postcards.
Yeah, this is the image we all know and love. We imagine strolling down these grand avenues, stopping at a charming cafe with iconic landmarks just around the corner. The city feels so open, so welcoming, just impossibly beautiful. You'd think it was all designed for pleasure and leisure.
But here's where it gets interesting. What if that's not the real story? What if this beautiful city, the one that feels so free, was actually designed for something much, much darker?
That's not just a what if. That's exactly what happened. The Paris you see today wasn't really born out of a love for beauty. It was a cold, calculated act of strategic military engineering. It was a complete teardown and rebuild designed to tame a city that the government had totally lost control of. And before we get into how they pulled that off, just a quick heads up. Please don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, share, and like our videos. The information in this explainer has been compiled from open sources. Thank you. Okay, so how on earth do you turn a city into a weapon?
Well, to get it, you have to see what Paris looked like before. Before the mid-1800s, Paris wasn't this bright, open city. Not at all. It was a medieval maze, a chaotic tangle of dark, narrow, winding streets. And for the rulers of France, this was a huge liability. Why? Because it was a perfect breeding ground for revolution.
You really have to think like a military commander here. Those narrow streets in Old Paris, they were a revolutionary's best friend. You could throw up a barricade with some furniture in just a few minutes, and boom, you control the whole block. For the state, it was a complete nightmare. You couldn't get troops in, cavalry was useless, and you couldn't get a clear line of sight for your cannons. So after the huge revolution in 1848, the new emperor, Napoleon III, knew he had to solve this problem, this architectural problem, or he'd never truly be in control.
Wow. So the city's very design was seen as the enemy. So how did Napoleon III and his guy, Baron Haussmann, actually weaponize the streets to fix this?
Oh, they were incredibly methodical about it. This chart really lays it bare. They literally bulldozed the narrow, winding streets and replaced them with these massive, straight boulevards. We're talking over 30 meters wide in some places. And let's be clear, this wasn't for Sunday strolls. It was designed to move large numbers of troops fast. And even more importantly, it gave them a clear field to use cannons. It completely flipped the script, giving all the advantage back to the state.
So wait, the whole point of these beautiful boulevards was to create clear lines of fire? They weren't avenues, they were shooting galleries. They were designed to make the classic Parisian barricade totally obsolete against a cannonball. That changes everything about how you see the city.
Exactly. Every single design choice had a military purpose. Wide avenues for moving troops. Long straight lines, perfect for artillery. They got rid of all the tight corners and alleys where rebels could ambush soldiers. And you know those famous, beautiful uniform building facades? That wasn't just for looks. It created smooth surfaces with no nooks or crannies, making it incredibly difficult for a sniper to find a good hiding spot. It was a complete military makeover.
Okay, but it feels like it's about more than just cannons. There's something about all these straight lines and wide open spaces. It's like the city itself has eyes, like you're constantly being watched.
You just nailed the second, and honestly, the most chilling part of the design. To get it, we have to talk about something called the Panopticon. It's a concept for a prison, dreamed up by a philosopher named Jeremy Bentham. The idea is brilliant in a terrifying way. You have a central guard tower that can see into every single cell, but the prisoners can't see the guard, so they never know for sure if they're being watched at any given moment, which means they have to act like they're always being watched.
Now, the philosopher Michel Foucault looked at this and said, hey, that's not just a prison. That's a metaphor for how modern power works. It's a machine that makes people police themselves. The surveillance doesn't even have to be constant. The possibility of it is enough to make people behave.
And that is precisely what Haussmann did to Paris. He took the Panopticon model and scaled it up to the city level. All those grand boulevards, the massive star-shaped intersections like the one around the Arc de Triomphe, those are urban panopticons. They create these long, uninterrupted sightlines. They get rid of shadows and hiding spots. They turned the entire city into a place where the government's gaze could be anywhere and everywhere, forcing citizens to watch their own step.
Okay, I'm with you. a city built for military control and constant surveillance. But what about the people? You know, the ones who actually lived in all those old medieval neighborhoods. You can't just plow a boulevard through a city without running over someone's house. What was the human cost of all this so-called progress?
The human cost was staggering. I mean, this was a project of mass destruction. Over about 20 years, they demolished something like 20,000 buildings. Entire neighborhoods, the very heart of the city's working-class communities, were just gone, wiped off the map.
And in their place, 34,000 new buildings go up. But let me guess, the people whose homes were just demolished probably couldn't afford to move into the new ones, right?
Not a chance. This wasn't just urban planning, it was social engineering. Or to be more blunt about it, it was social cleansing. When you tear down the old, dense neighborhoods and replace them with expensive new apartment buildings, the rent skyrockets. And just like that, the working class, the very people who were most likely to build barricades, were systematically priced out of the city center.
And the consequences of that decision echo to this very day. All those displaced people were pushed to the city's edge, out to the periphery, creating the suburbs we now know as the Banlieues. So this act of 19th century gentrification did more than just break up rebellious communities. It literally created the social and spatial segregation that has defined Paris and all its tensions ever since.
So now you have a city that's basically been redesigned to be riot-proof. It's a military fortress disguised as a beautiful jewel. But was it ever actually tested? Did this new design ever have to face a real full-blown revolution?
Oh yes, it was. In 1871, just a year after Haussmann was let go, Paris exploded again. The Paris Commune was declared. For 72 days, revolutionaries and radical workers took control of the entire city. This was it. This was the final exam for Haussmann's anti-revolutionary design.
And the design? It worked. It worked with horrifying efficiency. When the French army finally marched in to crush the Commune, those wide boulevards were a superhighway for troops and cannons. They moved into the heart of the city faster than ever before. Barricades were just blown apart. In 1 week, a period known as the Bloody Week, the army took back the city and killed as many as 20,000 revolutionaries. Haussmann's city had passed its test. This metaphor really just says it all, doesn't it? The renovation wasn't for the guests, the citizens. It was to make the house burglar-proof. It was a security system built into the very fabric of the city, to make sure the burglars, the rebels, could never again threaten the owner of the house. It really makes you look at every gorgeous Paris street in a completely different way.
And really, that's the question we're left with. When we look around at our own cities, at the wide streets, the public squares, the way things are laid out, we have to start asking ourselves, who is this really for? Is it designed to serve us, the people who live here, or is it, maybe in more subtle ways than 19th century Paris, also designed to manage, to watch, and ultimately to control us?